we now welcome Jimmy Oribiana, an artificial intelligence lead at Hitachi Energy, to share with us what engineering a win-win looks like.
Thanks. Super excited because this is an opportunity for myself to kind of outline how I see artificial intelligence because I'm responsible for deploying it across the organization. So my background is I'm an industrial engineer with my MBA plus a master in data science from a small school, which I'm not sure if you heard of, called Northwestern. Um, and I've been with the company about 18 years, focusing on different ways to improve our organization. And so I've been tasked to lay out our artificial intelligence strategy and how do we deploy it across the organization. And so I'm going to give you my takes when it comes to deploying AI. My three takes and four things that you need to incorporate in order to bring human-centered AI systems. Okay, so first, I'd like to state that the future of work isn't about humans versus AI. It's not even humans with AI. It's about human capability amplified by AI. Because if we don't put humans at the center of it, we won't scale intelligence, we're going to scale dependence. And so, my first take is that if you deploy AI systems without redesigning work, that's not transformational. So that's just building automation. And automation is beneficial, but it looks like progress on dashboards. But what you're doing is you're quietly eroding judgment, intelligence, and trust by taking the core subject matters experts out of the process. So in many organizations, the conversation starts with productivity and efficiency. But speed isn't capability. A team that finishes faster but thinks less critically is not high performing. So when we think about that, they're becoming more fragile and more risky if they don't apply their expertise in the process. And we have evidence of this trade-off today because there's been so many studies about this now. Recently, with the study of artificial intelligence, I'm just going to point out a specific study that I really looked into, which is one that was done in 2025 by Microsoft and Carnegie Mellon, where they surveyed 319 knowledge workers across 936 AI use cases. And what they found was a striking pattern. And that pattern was that the higher that these users had confidence in AI was associated with less critical thinking. Okay. It also showed in that study that there has been a trade off of passing on completion of tasks to more evaluation. So, what that really means is we have a job design problem that we need to focus around. Okay. So, the biggest risk is not that AI or machines will think like humans, it's that humans will stop the type of thinking that organizations need. Let me rephrase that. Let me say that again. It's that humans will stop the kinds of thinking that organizations need the most. Okay, because that connects directly to cognitive offloading. And cognitive offloading is when we hand off mental work to tools. And we've been doing this for decades. You have your cell phone, right? You have your calendar, you have GPS. You no longer have to memorize all of your meetings to organize your day. You just put it in your calendar. You don't have to memorize your routes. You put it into GPS. But the danger is that generative AI is also making it easier for you to offload evaluation and analysis. And these are super important muscles for expertise. So this the second part to that is that the same study showed that the effort required for critical thinking has been passed to AI. So the problem is organizations need to plan around this. So that leads me to the second part of my take, and that is if your AI strategy does not include judgment training, that's not a workforce strategy. It's cost dressed up in innovation. Okay. So this matters because AI is here. It's not going anywhere. And many organizations are building out their AI capability. Now, here's the good news. Human centered AI is not anti automation, it's anti dehumanization. We shouldn't reject AI, we should reject lazy implementation of AI. Okay. So, how do we design systems where humans become more capable and not less necessary? So, to me, there are four things that you can think about when deploying human centered AI systems. The first one is that we need to preserve agency. Okay. What that means is that we have to know when to challenge AI. We have to know when to override it. If the user experience makes acceptance easier than evaluation, then it's designed for compliance, not collaboration. Okay. So, which leads me to the second piece that we need. We have to create what I call productive friction. And that means including follow up questions. The agentic system should follow up with questions to where the user has to use their critical thinking in order to get and flush out the right answer. Not every task should be easy to complete with AI. We need to include this productive friction. Okay. The third piece is that we must include verification as something we have as a social norm. What I mean by that is the users have to be trained in critiquing this answer, looking at the resources, challenging the resources, reframing their prompts. Prompt crafting is an important one, meaning how do you readjust your prompt to get a better answer, right? Source checking is super important, looking at where the sources are coming from. And then, most importantly, knowing how to critique the answer. And the last part is that you need to connect performance with learning. If AI makes work faster, but weakens the formation of skills of tomorrow, organizations are only borrowing from their future. And we should measure success not only by the amount of time we've saved, but also by the learning velocity. How fast can we get people to learn how to work with AI? And leaders today should ask ask me all the time is how do we scale AI safely? I think the better question is how do we scale human judgment with AI? Because if we only scale the usage of AI and access to models, what we create is distributed efficiency, not distributed intelligence. So, This also, if we think about that, this also changes how we see silos. AI can break them down. It can span across functions, across geographies, but AI alone doesn't eliminate silos. It can just easily harden them if we automate ourselves into isolation. So the breakthrough comes when AI becomes a collaboration layer across the organization. So that means engineering, workflows, intensives, and learning systems. If we get this right, we remove the drudgery, we expand expertise, and we provide faster access to intelligence across the organization. So the real challenge isn't whether AI can do more, because it can. The real challenge is whether we will design work that helps humans do better thinking. Because in the end, the most important system is not AI, it's our people. So, with that, thank you for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity to give you my perspective. Um, and if you have any questions about how I am actually deploying this in reality, I have a whole roadmap on that. I'd love to talk to you about it because I think the people have to be at the center, at the core of what the system is actually supposed to be designed. Thank you.